Ooh, right. I've got a bit of a weird one to film today, I'm not gonna lie. It's rainy outside, I feel awful, I feel sick, I am exhausted, so I thought, why not talk about one of the most traumatic experiences of my life to make the day even better. So a few people know I had another YouTube channel before this one, and I wanted to make a new one just so I could change the name on it and things. You know, I'd already picked me little URL, that thing. I'd already picked that, so I didn't like it, and I only had about 100 subscribers, so I was like, let's start new. One of my most viewed videos on that channel was my skin cancer story channel. I'm doing great. One of my most viewed videos on that channel was my skin cancer story video, and it got like quite a few thousand views, which for a channel with like 100 subscribers is quite a lot to me anyway. I don't know, is it? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I am in two minds about this whole situation. Half of me is just like, doesn't feel like it ever happened to me. The other half gets really like upset about it and a bit like traumatized. I think that's a bit of a big word to use, but it's true. It was not a nice time for me. I'm going to talk about that today, but before I say anything or even start it, I just want to say a few things as a little disclaimer. Firstly, I slept in this top. Secondly, I'm making this video to educate people on skin cancer. I am not gonna lie or hold anything back in this video. My last video was kind of chill. It was too chilled and I left quite a bit out. Nothing to do with appointments, but more about like mentally what it does to you, because I kind of found that really hard to talk about a while ago, but now I'm okay. I feel as though the word cancer is a bit, it's horrible to use, isn't it? I've been in a lot of situations where people have kind of been like, oh, how did you get that scar? Or why weren't you around when this was happening? And I'm just like, I'm not like, I had cancer. I'm like, oh, I wasn't well. And then they're like, oh, what was up? I always have to say to them before I tell you what was up, I'm fine about it, like it's okay, but I had skin cancer. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for asking her. But I just want to like, get it out there. And I also want to, I don't know the word, I struggle with wording things a lot, but I don't want to, I don't know, when I used to think of cancer, I would think of someone who was like really skinny, really frail and had no hair and things like that. People would look at me and be like, oh, like she's okay. Like I don't think now I look different from when I had cancer. I look like this. Also don't know what someone's going through. I kind of want to bring that into it. Also, it should go without saying, but I'm not making this video for attention or for people to comment being like, oh, you're so brave. Like I did nothing. I sat and ate pizza, Asda American Heart. I think they've changed the name on that now. It's very upsetting me. You go to order it and they correct you and you're like, no, it's American Heart. The great people in the story are all the doctors that helped me. I love them so much. They are forever my heroes. I also really want to ask, I mean this in the nicest possible way, if you have a mole or something on your skin that you're not sure about, just go and get it checked out. I had a lot of people who watched my last video and either it really helped them or they were like worried and they went to get checked out because of it, which is what I want. I want people to do that. But they'd message me with pictures of their mole or things like that, and I am not a doctor. Like I don't know. Even doctors don't know before they take it off and look at it what it is and if it's okay or if it's bad. I definitely don't know. So I will always answer questions and comments like in the comment section, but please don't message me on like anything else about my opinion on things. Like don't rely on me or anything I say for a professional opinion. Like that's nothing. I can't even nearly give you that. Like just no. Like please go and see a doctor. That is my number one thing. See a doctor, and as soon as possible. I know it's scary. I'll talk about all of this very soon, but you may avoid being in the position I was in if you get it done sooner rather than later. And as you'll see from this whole thing, I probably could have avoided a whole lot of operations if I'd have gone much earlier, and yeah. So I'm also really not making this to scare anyone. It's a horrible truth, a lot of it. I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is the most horrendous thing. I could have had it a lot worse. Touch wood, it's over and done with for me, but I don't want to scare anyone. It's truth. I am hoping though that it puts people off sunbeds and wanting to be all tanned and stuff. Being tanned and wanting a tan to me is like a beauty thing, and if you're that concerned about your beauty, it's not worth the scars. Like, my scars don't really bother me, completely honestly. I've never been that into me looks. If you're, I'm trying to say this in the nicest way possible, if you're that concerned about your skin looking good, it's not worth the scars that you might get by trying to get your skin looking good. Does that make sense? And I don't mean that horribly, but that's just what goes through my mind, and that's the best way that I can think of wording it. I might be showing some pictures of scars and things in this video. I'll put warnings like everywhere, all over it, just in case anyone's squeamish, so you can still like listen to the information. I'll also put a little warning, or I'll say this is gonna get a bit graphic if I'm talking about something and I can't really leave it out, because as I said, I don't want to leave anything out of this video. My boyfriend's singing in the back. It's horrendous. So I've always been like really good at covering up on holiday, like using sun cream and that. I've probably only been sunburnt maybe 3 times in my life. I'm talking about like bad sunburn. I've always been quite pale. My mum and dad are really dark. It doesn't make sense. I look like I'm adopted. I've always used factor 50 and dropped down to 30 kind of through the holiday, depends on how it was going. And yeah, I've always been like really sensible like that. I've never really liked sunbathing. When I'm on holiday I get really bored. I don't like staying still. I've never been someone to like laze about in the sun or anything like that. I don't really like it. So obviously where I live we don't get that much sun. In the summer we do, and I will always wear my sun cream, but most of the time it is just grey and cloudy and not very nice. When I was around 15 I had a little freckle that was on the side of my foot, and it was only tiny. It was probably like, I've got like a little moley freckly thing there if you can see it. It probably started off like that size but a little bit darker, and over a few years I remember seeing it, and then I remember looking at it again a few years later and it was kind of raised. So I was like, that's a bit strange. Oh well, I'll keep an eye on it. My uncle was a doctor and I just asked him about it. I was like, what do you think of this? And he was like, oh, I don't really know, but I'll go and get it checked out. I made an appointment just with my doctors, or my GP, whatever you call them, and I showed them it and I was like, what do you think? Like, this has changed a little bit. And they said to me, like, they measured it, they took this little stick out, measured it, and they were just like, oh, it's actually under 7mm, which is what we'd usually look for in like a cancerous mole, so just keep an eye on it and see how it goes. So I was like, okay, I'll keep an eye, see if it grows anymore. I don't know if anyone will know, but in the Disney shop they have these little confettis. I'll see if like I can put a picture of one if I find it. They're still everywhere. Like, we've moved house like 4 times, there's still everywhere. It's like a little confetti bit. It's about like this big. It's just like the outline of Mickey's head. After that appointment I took the bit of confetti and I put it over my mole just to see like how big it was, and the mole fitted under it. So I kind of thought to myself, okay, well, if it gets any bigger I'll use this as like a measurement to see if it's growing. So I left it for a while and not much seemed to change with it for a bit. Another year or so later I found the Mickey confetti and I put it over my mole just to see, and it was bigger. So I was like, okay, that's not good, it's definitely growing. So I went back again to the GP or doctors and I said, like, look, he told me to come back, it's grown, what do I do? And they just said like, oh, keep an eye on it again. Don't know why they said that, but they did. He didn't seem too concerned, so I kind of thought, well, he's a doctor, why should I be worried if he said it's okay? This was the biggest mistake that I made, because I just kind of took his words and I left it for a while, and that was probably, I should have probably had it taken off then, but I didn't. I just went, oh, okay, well, you know, if you're not bothered then I'm not bothered. And I'd kind of have moments at home when I was really worried about it and it'd like come over me and I'd be like, what if this is something bad, oh my god, but then I was like, no, it's okay. Also, when something's on your body it's really hard to see it change, which I think is why I didn't notice, and I'm glad that I took the Mickey confetti and kind of used that as a guide. So while I wasn't doing anything about this mole, I started university in Blackpool, left there, whole other story, and I restarted university the next September, so this would have been September 2014. I started in a university in Liverpool. In my first university it was more like dance based, so you go in and it'd be, you know, just comfy clothes and that. My second university was more lecture based, so I'd do my lectures and then I'd go and I'd either go to my boyfriend's coffee shop and sit there, or I'd go and find somewhere in town. So I didn't want to be sitting around town like sweaty and in all, you know, horrible stuff, so I'd try and dress nice to go in. And because it was autumn, I liked to, you know, dress all nice. I'd wear like my tights and my boots and jumpers and things. So I bought these shoes. They were like these purple flats, and every day when I got off the bus to university I'd have to walk about 20 minutes, so I had these new shoes on. These shoes probably saved my life, to be honest, because I'm a 2.5 in UK size. I don't know what that is converted into any size, but I've got really small feet, and these shoes were a 3, so they were slightly too big. So as I was walking, they were all like, this is my foot coming in and out of the shoe, they were rubbing. And so we're going to get slightly graphic. It rubbed the top layer of my skin off and the mole started to bleed, and it just would not stop. If I covered it with a plaster, it wasn't getting enough air to start to heal. I'd just try and leave it and I'd put tights over it. It would stick and I'd have to peel the tights off it, which was disgusting, and then it would just bleed again. So all of this went on for about 2 weeks, and at this rate it started growing like double the time because it was being like knocked around so much. So I finally went back to the GP, or the doctors, whatever they're called, and I showed them, and they straight away were just like, okay, you need to be referred to the hospital. I was like, yeah, thanks. So that's when my anxiety got like really bad, because I'd been referred and I knew that I was most likely going to have to get it removed, so I was really worried about that. I was also worried because I knew at that time that it might be something really horrible. So yeah, I was really scared about that. I had an appointment with a dermatologist at the hospital. He was really nice, and when I went in to see him, he saw it and he was just like, you know, I don't know what that is. Obviously it looks really scary. It may not be, but we're gonna take it off and have a look at it anyway, just to be on the safe side. He just kind of said, you know, I wouldn't want that on my body, so it's probably best that you have it removed. So I was like, yeah, great. I don't want it either. Please take it off. I remember saying to him, like, I always try and make jokes and stuff because that's the kind of person I am. I said to him, oh, I'm not gonna die, am I? And I thought he'd just be like, oh, don't be silly, like that's so daft, oh, of course you're not. But he just went, I can't tell you that. I was like, oh, okay, this is serious. That was really scary. I shouldn't have said anything, learnt me lesson. Because of where it was as well, I had to go and see a plastic surgeon because it was on the side of my ankle. Obviously you don't have that much fat there or skin, so I would have to have a skin graft once it was taken off. I went to be a plastic surgeon and he said like what he called a balloon nevi, which is when, this is to my understanding, which is when it's something that looks really scary but it's actually an okay mole. He said it looks like that, but he can't promise anything. Like, I want to be clear that he was clear that he never like gave me false hope or anything. He was just saying, this is what I think it looks like, but I can't tell you that. It might be something horrible. I don't know until we take it off and we look at it. So we scheduled in my first operation, and I decided I was going to be awake for it, just because it was going to be only a small operation, and when you have anaesthetic, I don't know the difference between general and local anaesthetic, so I'm just going to say like putting you to sleep or not putting you to sleep. I probably should know. Decided I'd be kept awake for it, and because it was only going to be really quick, but I think if you have the anaesthetic that puts you to sleep, then I think you may have to stay overnight. So I didn't pick it because I just wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible, and also I kind of wanted to watch what was going on because I like all that stuff. I find it really interesting, luckily. So I'm going to be speaking about an operation now. Whether you want to not watch this is up to you. I'll try and put a timestamp of when I stop talking about it somewhere. So my mum, dad and Matty came with me to my first operation. I was a bit nervous because I'd never had an operation before, and I went into the room. They were all absolutely lovely, and I got to take my Kindle in, which was nice. I just had a little read while they were doing it for some bits, and then I watched for some of it as well. So they took my mole off and they showed me, and it was like, it was my skin, it was domed, the mole on top, and there was nothing under it, so that kind of made me feel a bit better. And then I had to like turn over and they took some skin from like the top of my bum and they had to sew that onto where they'd taken them all from. So that was me skin graft. But some of the way through the operation I started getting really hot and I felt like I was going to faint, and I said to him, you know, I'm really warm off these lights. I feel like I'm going to pass out, I'm feeling really hot. And they were dead sweet. Like they got me like a little cup of water and they had a straw and I was like drinking the water. And but they also stopped like showing me stuff and talking me through it because I think they thought I was like getting squeamish over it, which I wasn't. I was like, please, I still want to know. So I had stitches where they'd taken the skin from, and I had stitches and a massive oh my god, I cannot talk, a massive bandage all on my foot. So I came out, my dad and Matty weren't allowed to see me at first just because I was in a women's bit, and I remember like sitting down, I was really worried because it was like at the top of my bum. I was so scared to bust my stitches open, but I did not yet. I was sent home that day about 2 hours later maybe. They just fed me and gave me a cup of tea and then I was good to go. I went home, I just sat on the couch for a few weeks and my results letter came in the post and I was just kind of like, oh okay, that's fine. I was a little bit nervous, but we didn't really think there was anything going to be up, so I wasn't like horrifically nervous. Then another letter came through which pushed my results day forward. Now I don't know if this like was because it was bad news or what. Like, I don't want people to worry if that happens to them. It might just be that they have a free, you know, slot and they decide to move you forward. I don't know, but it moved the date forward, so that was a bit like, that's a bit scary. So while I was waiting for me results day, I did a couple of parties, performing at parties, not going to parties, and managed to get boots on that were like 5 sizes too big. And I also had to go the walk-in because my skin graft was like, it felt really itchy and I was worried that it was getting infected because sometimes the skin grafts can reject the skin that's put on them. So I had to go and get that checked, but it was fine. It looked really weird, but it was fine. So this is a bit that I really struggle with talking about still a little bit. It was not a nice day. I hate it. I hate remembering it, but it's relevant to the story, so it's got to be done. So on my results day, my mum and dad came with me. Matty was working, and we kind of just all assumed that it'd be okay. So we didn't see anything wrong with him going to work. Like, it wasn't a big deal to us. When I went in to the room, my name was called and everything. I went into the room and my doctor said to me, oh, like, how are you healing and everything? And I was like, oh, I'm great, like, yeah, I'm doing really well. I was dead like upbeat and stuff. And then he said, well, you're probably wondering what we found, and I'm sorry to tell you, but it was a melanoma. And I just remember, like, I remember him saying that, and then I don't remember anything else. I remember, like, I didn't faint or anything, but I blacked out, and it's the strangest thing that's ever happened. I'd ran across the room to, like, you know, where they lie you down to, like, examine you. I'd ran across to there and I was just sitting there and crying, and I think it was like I'd lost about like 5 minutes of like brain what's it called, 5 minutes of brain, like 5 minutes of like memory or like awareness. It was so strange. So I was sat there, I was really upset, and my mum and dad came and sat with me. My mum was trying to like ask him more things and trying to find out more because we didn't know anything about it. We were mostly confused, to be honest, because as I said earlier, I had never been like daft in the sun. I'd been on the sunbeds before, but literally twice ever in my life for 3 minutes because I was scared of the sunbeds. I watched Final Destination when I was 11 and I'd never quite forgotten that, so that's lucky. we didn't really understand like how I'd got it. It didn't kind of fit together. So then they told us about the lymphatic system. Again, don't take anything I say as gospel. If you want to learn more about it, like, look it up. But to my understanding, it's like a train line of lymph nodes which are all up your body, and when things are being drained out, they have to like stop at each lymph node on the way. So what they'd have to do is they'd have to take more skin from the area that the mole was taken from, and they'd have to find out which lymph nodes the cancer would have gone to first and check how far it spread. So this was like the worst situation I was in, because I didn't know if it had all gone in the bin with the mole or if it was everywhere on me. I had no idea, and no one else did either. No one knew how bad it was at this point. So with lymph nodes, the main areas are in your groin, your armpits and your neck. I'm pretty sure you've got them everywhere, but the main like gangs of them are all there. What was worrying me the most was that I'd noticed the mole first growing like years and years and years ago, so I didn't know how bad it was because it had so long to grow. After like 20 minutes of being in the room with my doctor, I just want to be clear, this isn't the same doctor that sent me away loads of times. Like, this doctor's amazing. I've also got no hate for the doctor that did send me away. I'm sure he's helped so many other people and I was just a bit unlucky. After about 20 minutes we were sent across to a Macmillan nurse and she was absolutely lovely. We were getting a little bit more kind of panicky about it just because it was all sinking in. We had loads of questions and she said to me, which kind of made me feel a little bit better at the time, I'm not gonna lie and be like it made me feel amazing, because I was like, I'm gonna die at that point. And she said to me, the main source of the cancer is in the bin. Everything from now on is just to keep you safe. So that made me feel really happy, like it's not producing anymore, so that's good. She was talking to me about my doctor because he was going to be looking after me. She said he was like the best. He treats things like really aggressively to make sure his patients are all good, and he does, like he is fab. So I had to schedule in my second operation and it was at a really rubbish time because I was performing as Jo in Little Women around that time and the show was opening in just like a couple of weeks. So I was able to do it. Like, they were trying to tell me to get it done before because obviously it was urgent to stop anything bad, but I just managed to do the show. The day after the show I was going to go in for my second operation, but I made up I got to do it because I would never want to pull out of something like that. The worst part was having to tell people. I had to ring Matty as soon as I got out the hospital, and then I had to like text me sisters because they were in work still, and my nan and people like that, and it was rubbish because they had a lot of questions too. Like, they wanted to know like how bad it was, or if, you know, what was the next thing that they were going to do. And I could tell them about me operation, but I couldn't really tell them anything else. So I remember like that night and the next morning just being the worst thing ever. I remember just sitting there being just completely didn't know what to do with myself. One half of me was just like, I'll be okay, but then the next half, like, I was just like numb. It was so weird, and I guess it comes from a place of being really, really lucky. Like, nothing this bad has ever happened to me before. So on the one hand it's kind of like, oh, you were 21 before you experienced something like absolutely horrific, like be grateful, but it still wasn't nice to experience. Then I think like the worst thing that I absolutely hate remembering, I don't often feel sorry for myself, but in this situation I did. I remember the next morning, it was horrific. I woke up and, you know, you're just dead groggy, and I remember like Matty was lying next to me and I literally turned over to be like, I had a dream, I had my appointment and it was bad. And I kind of was like that, and he was still asleep, and I looked at him and then I was like, oh no, that happened, oh crap. And it was horrible because for a split second I thought it wasn't real and I was so happy. But yeah, it was. I did have a few really good things to keep me occupied like during that time, which was just horrible. As I said, I was doing Little Women. I was also rehearsing for Legally Blonde, where I was playing Margot. Legally Blonde wasn't for like another 5 months before then, so that was a bit away. Little Women was my main focus. But that's like, it's a really emotional show, and I always make jokes to like my family around the time. Spoiler, Beth dies. And I was just kind of like, that's a good job I wasn't playing Beth. Like, you're not funny. But like, on a more serious note, it's like still really special to me because I know this sounds so dramatic, but you gotta understand, like, back then, as I've said, we didn't know how bad it was. So I didn't know if that was going to be the last show that my family had seen me in, and I didn't know if that was going to be the last thing I was ever in. For them, they didn't know if that was going to be the last thing they'd see me in. Like, it was just very emotional all around. So we finished the show, I absolutely loved it. It was so good. I wish I could experience it without having the horrible stuff behind it, because I do think of that, but at the same time it's happy because I'm here now. but I don't feel like I fully appreciated that show experience, if that makes sense. So, because I don't really remember most of it, I was kind of like on autopilot, but yeah.